My family disowned me for telling the truth. But was I wrong? At a family reunion, relatives gathered after years of separation. Laughter echoed, old memories resurfaced, and an atmosphere of joy enveloped the room. Then, a single truth shattered everything. One statement disrupted the harmony. Accusations followed. Relationships fractured. The person who spoke the truth became the villain. The family turned against them, not for lying, but for revealing what others wanted to hide. Honesty demanded a heavy price. Trust dissolved. Love turned to resentment. Silence would have preserved peace, but truth demanded to be heard. This story reveals the devastating consequences of speaking up when silence feels easier. It questions loyalty, integrity, and the cost of standing by the truth. This story revolves around a family that appeared perfect on the surface. Relatives admired their unity, friends envied their bond, and neighbors spoke highly of their closeness. However, beneath the smiles and laughter, hidden tensions brewed, unspoken truths lingered, and secrets remained carefully guarded. The protagonist of this story, whom we will call Alex, grew up in this seemingly flawless family. Alex was the younger sibling, always overshadowed by the older brother, Mark. Mark was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Teachers praised his intelligence, relatives admired his charm, and parents celebrated his achievements. Every success of Mark became a family victory. Every praise for him echoed through the household. However, Alex saw a different side of Mark, a side no one else acknowledged. Mark was not just charming. He was manipulative. He knew how to twist stories to his advantage, effortlessly portraying himself as the hero. Mark's version of events always positioned him as the victim or the victor, and no one ever questioned his narrative. In contrast, Alex was often painted as the troublemaker, the one who never understood Mark's intentions. This pattern continued for years, leaving Alex feeling isolated and unheard. Alex learned to stay silent, to endure the injustice quietly. Speaking up only led to arguments, accusations of jealousy, and a widening gap between Alex and the rest of the family. It seemed easier to accept the blame than to challenge the family's perception of Mark. After all, how could one voice compete against the collective admiration of the golden child? Things took a dramatic turn at the family reunion, the first one in years. Relatives traveled from different cities to attend, bringing gifts and excitement. Conversations flowed easily, old stories were retold, and laughter filled the air. Amidst the celebrations, Mark seized the opportunity to boast about his latest achievement. With a proud smile, Mark announced that he had bought their parents a new house. He spoke in detail about the beautiful architecture, the spacious rooms, and the luxurious garden. Relatives were impressed, showering him with praise, calling him the ideal son who fulfilled his responsibilities with grace and generosity. Parents looked at him with pride, their faces glowing with admiration. However, Alex knew the truth. Mark did not buy that house. Their parents had used their retirement savings to purchase it, but Mark took credit for the entire expense. He crafted a narrative that positioned him as the dutiful son, using the occasion to strengthen his image as the family's hero. It was not just a lie. It was a betrayal of trust and an insult to the sacrifices their parents made. For a moment, Alex considered staying silent once again. The thought of disrupting the celebration, of confronting Mark in front of everyone, felt overwhelming. Yet the injustice was too heavy to bear. The lies had gone too far, and the manipulation was too blatant to ignore. Alex realized that staying silent would mean accepting the deception, enabling Mark to continue his false narrative without consequences. Determined to reveal the truth, Alex stood up. The decision was not made out of jealousy or revenge, but out of a need for honesty. It was time to challenge the illusion, to let everyone see the reality that had been hidden behind Mark's carefully crafted stories. Alex's heart raced, hands trembled, but the words were ready. The truth was about to be spoken, and there would be no turning back. Alex's decision to confront Mark did not emerge from a single incident. It was the result of years of silent suffering, repeated betrayals, and countless moments of injustice. Mark had always known how to manipulate situations to his advantage, effortlessly turning every narrative in his favor. He mastered the art of appearing generous, kind, and responsible, all while hiding his selfish motives beneath a polished facade. As children, Mark and Alex were inseparable. They played together, shared secrets, and defended each other against neighborhood bullies. At least that was how it appeared to everyone else. Behind closed doors, Mark often teased Alex, belittling his achievements and mocking his dreams. He skillfully masked his cruelty with playful humor, ensuring that no one took Alex's complaints seriously. When Alex tried to express his hurt, relatives dismissed it as sibling rivalry, leaving Alex feeling unheard and invalidated. Throughout school, Mark excelled academically and socially. Teachers praised his intelligence, friends admired his charisma, and parents celebrated his accomplishments. Family gatherings revolved around his achievements, with relatives showering him with compliments. Meanwhile, Alex's successes were downplayed or compared to Mark's superior accomplishments. No matter how hard Alex tried, it was never enough to earn the same recognition or appreciation. This favoritism extended beyond academics. When Mark borrowed Alex's belongings, he never returned them, often claiming he lost them or that Alex was too irresponsible to take care of them. If Alex protested, their parents scolded him for being selfish or petty. Mark manipulated every situation, positioning himself as the responsible older brother while painting Alex as immature and difficult. The narrative was so convincing that even Alex began to doubt his own perspective. The turning point came when Mark started his career. He secured a high-paying job with the help of a family friend, but claimed he earned it solely through his hard work and talent. At every gathering, he boasted about his professional success, describing his luxurious lifestyle and expensive purchases. Relatives admired his achievements, calling him the pride of the family. Alex watched in silence, knowing the truth behind Mark's carefully constructed image but feeling powerless to challenge it. As Mark's career flourished, he continued to manipulate the family's perception. He strategically helped relatives with small favors, ensuring they remembered his generosity. He bought gifts for his parents on special occasions, exaggerating their value and effort. In reality, he used his parents' savings or took loans under their name, never repaying them. Yet, he took full credit for his so-called sacrifices, further strengthening his image as the perfect son. Meanwhile, Alex struggled to find his own identity within the family. His achievements were always overshadowed by Mark's grandeur. His opinions were dismissed, his efforts overlooked, and his struggles ignored. Relatives saw him as the less accomplished sibling, the one who failed to live up to Mark's standards. Alex felt trapped in a cycle of comparison, constantly judged against an illusion he knew was built on lies. The final blow came when Mark announced the house purchase. It was not just another exaggeration. It was a complete fabrication. Their parents had worked tirelessly, sacrificing their comfort and security to afford that house. They used their life savings, planning for a peaceful retirement. Yet, Mark claimed it as his achievement, using it to solidify his role as the ideal son. He lied without hesitation, fully aware of the impact it would have on Alex's already fragile reputation. For Alex, this was not just about correcting a lie. It was about reclaiming his dignity, his truth, and his voice. Years of silent endurance had taught him that Mark would never change unless confronted. It was time to end the cycle of manipulation and deception. It was time to speak up, regardless of the consequences. As Alex stood up, the room fell silent. Conversations halted, and curious eyes turned toward him. Mark's smile faltered for a brief moment before he regained his confident composure. He looked at Alex with a smug expression, fully convinced that no one would believe whatever Alex was about to say. After all, Mark had always controlled the narrative. Heart pounding, Alex took a deep breath. The words felt heavy, but the truth demanded to be spoken. Alex began by acknowledging the effort it took for their parents to buy the house. Relatives listened attentively, nodding in agreement. Then, Alex revealed the truth. Mark did not buy the house. Their parents used their savings, and Mark took credit for their sacrifice. Gasps of disbelief filled the room. Faces turned toward Mark, searching for a reaction. Mark's confident expression wavered before he quickly laughed, dismissing Alex's statement as nonsense. He claimed Alex was confused, jealous, and trying to ruin his moment. Mark's voice carried a convincing sincerity, the same tone he always used to manipulate the situation in his favor. But Alex did not back down. Determined to expose the deception, Alex continued, sharing specific details about the financial transactions, the late-night discussions between their parents, and the sacrifices they made to afford the house. Every word chipped away at Mark's fabricated story, revealing the truth piece by piece. The atmosphere grew tense. Relatives exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of who to believe. Mark's loyal supporters looked uncomfortable, their admiration now clouded with doubt. Their parents sat in stunned silence, faces pale as they realized the impact of Mark's manipulation. Mark's anger flared. He accused Alex of seeking attention, of resenting him for his success. He raised his voice, attempting to overpower Alex's truth with his familiar narrative of victimhood. But this time, Alex did not waver. Years of silent suffering had given him the strength to stand firm. Emotions ran high. Tears welled in their mother's eyes as the reality of the situation sank in. The golden image of Mark began to crack, exposing the lies beneath. The room felt heavy with tension, the once joyful reunion now overshadowed by confrontation and betrayal. Mark's face turned bright red as the room erupted into chaos. Family members tried to speak, some defending Alex, others rushing to Mark's side. The emotional weight of the revelation was too much for their parents to bear. Their mother's voice trembled as she finally spoke up. "Alex, is this true?" Her eyes searched his face, looking for a sign that he might be mistaken. But there was no mistaking the anguish in his eyes. It wasn't just a house they were talking about. It was the years of hidden truths, the silent sacrifices, the betrayal of trust. Alex's throat tightened, but he spoke with a steady voice. "I wish it weren't true, but it is. I've watched Mark manipulate everyone, including you. He took credit for what you worked so hard for." The room fell into a suffocating silence. Relatives exchanged uneasy glances, unable to ignore the painful truths that were laid bare. Mark's carefully cultivated image was crumbling before their eyes. He lashed out in anger, shouting at Alex, calling him ungrateful and bitter. He accused Alex of trying to tear the family apart, turning the entire situation into a personal attack on him. But no one was listening to Mark's words anymore. The damage had been done. His web of lies had finally unraveled. Then their father, who had remained quiet up until now, stood up. His face was hard, his voice low but filled with authority. "Mark, do you have anything to say for yourself?" The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, Mark couldn't manipulate the situation, couldn't twist the narrative to his advantage. As Mark stood there, speechless, the weight of the truth pressed down on everyone. The family was fractured, and it was clear that things would never be the same again. The aftermath of that moment was like a storm that had swept through the family, leaving destruction in its wake. What had started as a seemingly small confrontation about a house had now become the catalyst for a deep unraveling of trust and loyalty. The damage was not just limited to Alex and Mark's relationship. It rippled through the entire family, fracturing bonds that had seemed unbreakable. Mark tried to salvage his image in the hours that followed, but the damage was irreversible. His attempts to manipulate the situation only made matters worse. Relatives who had always supported him began to distance themselves. The once glowing praise of his achievements turned to cold silence. Even the relatives who had admired his generosity and success began to question the authenticity of his actions. Alex, on the other hand, found himself caught in a strange limbo. He had spoken the truth, yet the cost of his honesty was not what he had expected. He had hoped for vindication, for a sense of relief in finally exposing Mark's lies. But instead, he found himself isolated, even from those who should have supported him. The family, torn between loyalty to Mark and the truth Alex had spoken, struggled to find a path forward. The real shock came from their parents. Their mother, devastated by the revelation, withdrew into herself. The realization that her son had manipulated her for so long hit her like a physical blow. For years, she had trusted Mark's version of events, had believed his narrative of responsibility and sacrifice. Now, she was left grappling with the fact that her trust had been misplaced. She couldn't even look Mark in the eye anymore. Every time their gaze met, she saw the lies he had spun. Their father, on the other hand, was angry, furious. Even, he had spent years building a life for his family, making sacrifices, and trying to ensure their future. To know that Mark had used their hard-earned money and manipulated their trust felt like a betrayal of everything they had worked for. He was no longer willing to protect Mark's image. His voice, once filled with warmth and affection, now carried an icy edge. Mark's actions had broken something within him, a part of his father's heart that would never heal. The confrontation marked the beginning of a long, painful process of rebuilding, or, in some cases, the end of rebuilding altogether. Mark's behavior led to deeper rifts within the family. Relatives were no longer as eager to attend family gatherings. The house, which was supposed to symbolize the unity of the family, now served as a constant reminder of betrayal and manipulation. Alex, despite being proven right, found himself facing his own set of consequences. No one truly knew how to support him. Some relatives, while acknowledging the truth, saw him as the one who had caused the disruption. He had ripped the veil off a perfect family image that no one was ready to face. In a way, his decision to speak up had left him just as isolated as before, only now, the isolation was more painful because it had come from people who had once been his allies. Even after months had passed, the tension in the family remained. Family gatherings became awkward affairs, filled with forced smiles and strained conversations. The relationship between Alex and Mark, once seemingly unbreakable, had been irreparably damaged. They would never be the same again. Mark had lost his golden reputation, and Alex had lost the family he had once believed in. The question lingered in the air: was it worth it? Had the truth been worth the price? Alex wrestled with this question every day, knowing that while the truth had freed him, it had also cost him more than he had ever imagined. And in the end, the family was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered bond, unsure if they could ever truly heal. Months passed, and the fallout from that fateful evening continued to linger like a shadow over the family. The space that had once been filled with love, laughter, and shared memories now felt hollow. The walls of the family home, once a symbol of unity, now stood as silent witnesses to the fractures that had formed. But amidst the chaos, a strange sense of clarity began to emerge. Alex found himself alone in a quiet corner of the world he had once known. He no longer craved the approval of relatives or the validation of his parents. The weight of their expectations, their judgment, and their silence had once consumed him, but now, he realized that the truth he had fought for had given him something far more valuable than approval. It had given him his own sense of self-worth. He had spoken up for what was right, regardless of the consequences, and in doing so, he had reclaimed his own voice. While the family was still fractured, a small glimmer of hope emerged. His mother, though deeply hurt, began to speak with Alex again. Her grief was palpable, but there was a quiet understanding that had not been there before. She had always loved her children equally, but now, she could see the strength in Alex that she had failed to recognize before. She saw a man who had taken a stand for truth, even at great personal cost. Alex's father, still angry, began to come to terms with the truth as well. The lies that had been woven around Mark's actions had shattered his sense of security, but over time, he began to see the bigger picture. Mark had used his manipulation to shield himself from responsibility, but Alex's willingness to speak up had brought the truth into the light. Slowly, the tension between father and son began to ease, but it would take much longer for their bond to fully heal. Mark, on the other hand, was left to deal with the consequences of his actions. No longer the golden boy, he had lost the support of relatives and, more importantly, his family's trust. The house, which had once been a symbol of his success, now felt like a prison. The weight of his lies bore down on him, and no amount of wealth or status could erase the guilt that festered in the corners of his mind. As for Alex, while the journey had not been easy, he had come to understand that speaking the truth was never about seeking validation. It was about freeing himself from the shackles of manipulation and deceit. He was no longer the quiet, overshadowed sibling. He was someone who had found his strength in the midst of chaos. Reflection now filled Alex's mind. Was the pain worth it? It was hard to say. There were still days when the wounds felt fresh, when the loneliness crept in. But the journey towards self-discovery had made him realize that integrity, no matter the cost, was always worth fighting for. In the end, Alex did not just gain a sense of personal victory, he had gained peace. And sometimes that was the only resolution he could ever truly ask for. As we wrap up this intense journey, we want to hear from you. What do you think about Alex's decision to expose the truth, even at such a high personal cost? Do you believe that speaking up for what's right is always worth the consequences, or are there times when silence might be the better choice? If you've ever been in a situation where you had to stand up for yourself or someone else, we'd love to hear your story. Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We read every one and truly value your perspective. Remember to hit that like button if you found this story powerful, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more gripping tales like this. Join our community because your voice matters here. Before you go, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on all our future video. We bring you the most intriguing and thought-provoking tales from Reddit, exploring complex emotions, family dynamics, and moral dilemmas. You never know what surprising twist will unfold next. Also, if you enjoyed this video, share it with a friend who could use a little perspective on standing up for the truth, no matter the price. We believe stories like these have the power to spark meaningful conversations. We'd love to know what kind of stories you want to hear next. Whether it's insane family drama, intense AITA posts, or heartwarming moments, drop your suggestions in the comments. You might just see your favorite story featured in an upcoming video.